Kingdom Hearts boss battles, the pinnacle of leaving each world and going into another, concluding a Disney story. And Kingdom Hearts is a very replayable game. Multiple playthroughs of KH3 made me ponder how large the health bars are for these bosses. It's always taken into consideration depending on the stage of the game, usually increased to compensate for the new strength that the player has. Dream Drop Distance was a notable game last time that raised eyebrows about the health bars of story-based bosses. Seeing as Kingdom Hearts 3 is the culmination of all the different past game abilities, it's expected that the enemy's health is multiple times more than in Kingdom Hearts 2. Maybe you remember in the early days of Kingdom Hearts 3, before even Critical Mode was released, that people were saying that the game was too easy, and it was for someone who is very accustomed to cage combat. The Grim Guardianess didn't even shock me to have 12 bars of health. Davy Jones, 15 bars of health. This one. With Kingdom Hearts 3 being the game summing up the saga to accumulate almost all the abilities from the other games, would the next installment follow suit? We're going into the next phase of the series, and there's a possibility that we could end up having way more abilities, or it will revert back to the basic attacks. I've heard some people say that bigger health bars make a fight better, and others say that it is an unnecessary hassle. Speedrunners may hate to restrict themselves from using certain abilities as a challenge to defeat these giant bosses in KH3. But restriction wasn't really the goal for giving these bosses that amount of health. Keyblade transformations was basically the substitute of the drive forms with similarities of the style changes in Birth by Sleep with its AoE finishes. They were more usable as it didn't have to sacrifice a drive gauge or need to remove any party members. The damage buffs combined with its finishers, Keyblade transformations blows off a huge deal of battering. Not to mention the team attacks that would just free damage if you land them. Bigger health bars would be there to create a fight more lasting for the players to use the abilities that the game wants them to use. Depleting it is way faster with these abilities. Engaging the player in the fight is important in the final battle that you will do in each world that stands off as its conclusion. What Kingdom Hearts 2 had done very differently was by using different reaction commands with bosses and environment mechanics as the primary medium of making a fight lasting and unique in a sense. Using the surrounding environment to implement these types of commands with the interactive reactions that the player had to do already creates that inclusivity. The Storm Rider fight is a good example. To get airborne takes more than a combo master. You'd have to interact with these tornadoes, kill its taunts, get blown back, and do some aerial combos. From that type of boss design compared to the continuous combat you'd get with larger health bars in KH3, both would do the job of getting the player to further learn and see their best ways of using what the game provided them with. A great boss design should always try to engage the player to use the abilities that they have gained and to apply different strategies. And when Kingdom Hearts 3's heartless bosses lack a lot of these reaction commands, you can see its benefits since it won't be a press triangle to win, thus the massive health bar. But it may also create a stagnant pattern of how boss fights are played, having the same routine for each battle. While Kingdom Hearts 3 encourages the players to use its various features, it isn't necessary for them to use it. New players might not even see its usability, since sticking to just one Keyblade can yield the same result. Reaction commands would be a mandatory command to get through to defeat a boss fight. What KH3 bosses have, however, is the environment that the battle is located in, like how the Grim Guardianess uses the tower as high ground, or Davy Jones getting assisted by the Kraken. Some might discuss the downside of reaction commands, that they were easily executed except for one time. There isn't a time skill check, like what Shotlocks have, or that standoff with Data Zigbar. It wouldn't feel as rewarding when spamming triangle easily guarantees moving to the next phase or doing a burst of damage. However, the downside is, reaction commands are still amazing to perform with different visuals for different bosses, especially in first playthroughs. After KH2, the series did start to reduce those cinematic sequences, but for a game developed in the 2000s, those in-battle cinematics were very unique. Sora had way more mobility in KH3 than KH2, in that some sequences that might have required reaction commands are just done by the players themselves, especially with abilities like Air Step and Wall Run. You won't need to swirl on a small tornado when you can make your own. Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3 have very similar combat systems. You'd wait for your enemies to attack, block a couple of them, find an opening, or back out if you failed to do so. While KH3 changes this concept slightly with reprisals and iframes, the idea is still there. Kingdom Hearts relies on the player's smart decisions by analyzing the enemy's movements. Taking away the stagger aspect within some of these bosses makes them less predictable, putting them dependent on how a player approaches it. Attacks from bosses with the stagger can be easily anticipated due to their combo and damage thresholds with their revenge value, making it far more simple for players to back out from attacking. Humanoid bosses would usually have the stagger since their attacks are more instant, while the bigger Heartless doesn't have it due to their slow attacks, with it being more time-based. And there were even some people during the days of Proud Mode KH3 suggesting that the Not Quad battle should have had even larger health bars. That fight had a lot of crowd control work along with the chaotic arena, but fully immersing in the fight with the different abilities is a spectacle. It is one of my favorite fights that seemingly works well without the cinematics like KH2's final battle, and Sykes having the largest health in KH3 indicates a better participation from party members that substitutes the limit attacks. Whatever your preferences are, of bosses with lower health bars with the reaction commands, or bigger health bars with more emphasis on player execution, have the potential to enhance a boss battle in its own way. Combining the two is a doable concept if the series is going to continue forward with these robust abilities. I certainly hope the other characters can be playable with their own gimmicks.